Right then, ladies and gentlemen, I've been looking to upgrade the old mobile phone because this yoke is not half as good as what it could be. And we need the upgrade for the camera. See, the camera is the biggest
Emotional
part. I need
damage!
a good picture and a good video. Who doesn't want to miss out on a good video opportunity or a good picture opportunity when you're going somewhere? It's key. It's absolutely necessary. So let's have a look at the Galaxy S23 Ultra versus the iPhone 14 Pro Max. At the very end of it all, I will pick which one I prefer and which one I might dip my hand into my pocket to pick out.
When I tested the iPhone 14 Pro Max against Samsung's last S22 Ultra, it was a clear winner. The iPhone took better video, it took better night shots, it was a way more stable camera. But this new S23
Right then.
Ultra is a direct response to Apple.
From how he's
Samsung's dialed
talking,
up
it
the
sounds like the
resolution to
Samsung is winning it.
astronomical megapixels and focused on taking true 8K video, brighter night shots, and completely overhauling the stabilization system.
Okay,
So,
sweet
you've got 12
mother
camera
of God
categories.
above. Irish, monkey brain, simple terms. Not all this fancy jibber jabber that me don't understand. Okay, let's keep going.
And through them, we're going to see if Samsung's actually done enough to completely turn them around and take that crown.
12
So,
categories.
Starting off with the selfie camera, because Samsung's fitted the S23 with a new one, the video quality definitely looks like a step in the right direction.
Oh
You
yeah.
can see my face texture, you can see my beard detail really clearly.
I still like the Apple
I
one
was
though.
even slightly taken aback by how decent the video looks in low light. It's still not quite got the smoothening anti-grain power of the iPhone.
The Apple one
Which
is a bit
is enough for
nicer.
me to say that Samsung is still behind at this, just not
And the Apple
nearly as
one's
much as they
nicer
used to
there.
be.
And then if you flick over to selfie photos, it's a different story entirely. It's a bit of a weird one, in that the S23 Ultra actually has a lower resolution front camera than the S22 Ultra that came before it. But
Why?
there's something quite magnificent
That
about
just don't
how
make sense.
It always seems to land. I've taken over 300 selfies on both of these phones, and thanks to the new dual pixel autofocus on Samsung, not a single one of my S23 ones are out of focus. I mean, the iPhone is already
The
pretty good
Samsung
at
one
this,
is
but
nicer
every now and again, when even that
on the
struggles,
pictures.
Samsung's got it. Plus, it gets skin tone spot on, brightening and smoothing your face a little to make you the center of attention.
It's so
It
much
sharpens up
nicer.
face details like eyelashes and beards, but it does so while nailing that balance between wanting a crispy, detailed, realistic photo and then going for so much realism that
Oh,
you're sat there evaluating.
we have a battle now.
Skincare regimen. Samsung can now also instantly cut you out of your photos by just holding down on the screen. But the iPhone's end result is in a different league altogether. Like literally, good enough to instantly use that cutout in a YouTube thumbnail, for example. So, that's 1 point each, which means
Oh.
Samsung's already doing a lot better than it was last year. And it gets better. Because
Right then.
Then I decided,
I need to see this new stabilization system, because the S23 Ultra has both an improved
The
software
video
image
is a
stabilization
bit
combined
clear
with the lens
on
itself
the
having
Apple, but
2 times the
don't
physical
know.
optical image stabilization, it's got to do something. And let's put it this way, I could not believe the difference from last year. I'm so used to testing brand new, revolutionary video cameras, only to put them next to the iPhone and go, oh, right, never mind then. This is different. The minute you open this phone's camera, it becomes very clear that stability is now a priority. And it actually does
Ooh.
translate to video that is practically free from all the
the
micro-stuttering
Samsung
that
one
comes
is a
with
bit
not being able
nicer,
to
but
hold the camera still.
the Apple gets more detail. Look at the wall at the background. There's like, it's blurry here, but it's actually in really good detail here.
Or having
So
a bit
far saying
too
the Apple
risky of
one
a
is
walk.
better on the
It's
video.
like having a car with a really powerful suspension. It just glides. And nowhere is that more apparent than when you're moving around at night, where the electronic image stabilization tends to fail. This has,
Ooh,
in
the
a single
Samsung one
generation,
is
gone from one of Samsung's key
bit
weaknesses
cleaner.
to one of their key strengths.
Smoother.
A full-on sprint isn't too much for it. This is the kind of jump that you don't expect to see within a 1-year time frame. But where the company
Jeez.
really fell behind in last year's tests were when you were using the phone's dedicated super steady modes, where it wasn't really that Samsung's was bad, it's more that Apple's
I have to say, I do think the Apple one looks nicer with the curved edges instead of these sharp smack edges you could blow someone's
software
forehead
is
in
just
with if you hit him with
really
it.
Shockingly good. But yeah, Samsung's new stabilization system has entirely bridged that gap, enough to turn a previous
Yeah.
loss in the stabilization category last year into a full-on victory. Hey, do you want to
Jeez.
guess which phone wins the zoom category? It might be the iPhone. I don't know, it could be the iPhone.
Not with this super zoom that Samsung has for a fucking
while Apple
moon,
has
like.
a single 3x zoom camera, Samsung has both a 3x and a 10x camera. And you can actually see the phone's improved AI layering in extra detail even after the shot has been captured. Now, I will say this, while the S23 Ultra Zoom is in some cases better than the S22 Ultra Zoom, this is far from what I would call a next-gen experience, like the stabilization was, or like some of the stuff you're about to see is. Which is to say, the phones are about equal at early magnifications.
Color is
Samsung then
way
falls
nicer on the
behind
Samsung though.
between 3x and 10x, because
Look at the
while
video
both
he
phones
has
have
on.
3x optical zoom cameras, Apple's can see further. And then as soon as you pass 10x and Samsung's second zoom camera kicks in, it's a whitewash. It is a bit of a shame though, that, this is the 4th generation of phone for which Samsung's been quoting their 100 times zoom abilities, and yet we're still not really close to 100 times shots being usable. But make no mistake, the S23 Ultra is the better camera for all of those zoomy folk out there.
Samsung looks like they're whitewashing them now at the moment.
And the difference is not small.
That's
So at this
just
point,
crazy.
Samsung is absolutely dominating. But if you had to put down money on one category being the end of that streak, it would be the quality of the video itself. The fact that Apple designs the chips for their phones and then has almost an entire year.
When did Apple bring out their 15? That's coming out like September or something.
Compounded by the fact that they make such a small number of phones per year means that they just have more time than any other company to make sure that their video processing pipeline is really optimized and that the video is reliable in every possible condition. And because
Samsung one
video
is
is one of the most
bit
complex
nicer
things to
colour-wise.
master, more so than photos, I think this is where you most feel the fact that Samsung and most other Android companies have had to rush.
Now, all that said, it takes a total of 5 seconds.
The
using
Apple one is
Samsung
way
Galaxy
cleaner
S23
here.
Ultra to see that this is the
Way more
smoothest
in detail.
Screen-filled video a Samsung phone has ever recorded. And one of the first things that I was really surprised to see is the real-time, high-dynamic range in Samsung's video. So, have a little look at the sign in this shot. Because it's noticeably brighter than everything around it, it's
Yeah,
overexposed
that's
on the iPhone.
good attention to
But
detail.
Samsung has recognized the brightness of that sign and specifically dialed it down so that it still remains readable. So yeah,
Still quite nice though.
it's pretty huge. It's not enough for me to say that it's ahead of the iPhone, because like, if you go to a more extreme lighting environment, you can see the simple fact that Apple has spent more time tuning start to kick in those fringe cases. The way that Samsung goes about achieving its noise reduction in low light is by capturing multiple
colours are
frames
so
and
much
then
nicer
layering
on the
those frames on
Samsung
top
though.
of
It's a
each other.
warmer
It's
colour.
usually strong, but if you then start
Colour!
moving the phone erratically, it doesn't get time to
Colour!
form this properly and breaks down, revealing all the grain. Plus, Apple still remains slightly more detailed in almost all cases. It's getting close, closer than I ever expected it to be, to the point where Apple should be worried, but they do just edge it out for now. But then, Samsung does have a bit of a secret weapon this time.
Ooh,
Something that the
secret
iPhone
weapon.
just straight up can't do. 8K. Let me be very
I got a secret weapon. Scott hitting the subscribe button. Thank you very much.
clear. 8K is not a little bit more than 4K. 8K is 4 times the number of pixels of 4K. And while this isn't the first phone that can shoot 8K, on
Jeez.
everything I've tested it on over the last few years, it has been a clearly tacked on, janky experience. Samsung is saying it will be different this time. And
So how is it going to be different?
if you are shooting under really bright conditions, like broad daylight or under a really powerful lamp, then I can confirm that 8K is now a legitimate option that does add detail to already detailed 4K video. But then, in anything less than optimal lighting, you just end up with a technically higher resolution.
Still think I
clip,
like the
but
Apple one.
that's actually grainier, because the phone just has more pixels to light up without enough light to know what to do with them. The way that Samsung talked about the 8K, I felt like this phone might be the turning point where the masses start using it. But having probably tested it, I think we'll be waiting
don't
at
know.
least another year
I
to
think
see
when
the
people are
benefits.
going to focus a lot on
As
video,
any
they're going to
movie
just get a
director will
camera
tell
for
you,
video.
When it comes to video, audio is 50% of the package. So, which one sounds better? Well, it's actually pretty cool that Samsung has also silently upgraded the microphones on this phone. Not a huge update, but what you'll actually notice more is that because the speakers of the phone are now upgraded, when you're listening back to the
Yeah.
videos taken on the phone, they now easily keep up with the iPhone.
The Samsung one is a bit more muted, but it's a bit clearer on the words. Whereas the Apple one sounds like it's a bit more staticky, for the want of a better word.
This is pretty exciting stuff. But then I remembered, wait, this phone has a brand new 200 megapixel camera. It's optimized to shoot quicker, more detailed shots than ever before. Surely the biggest improvement is going to be in just photos. Well, okay, let's start with detail. Both phones have a normal auto mode, and then their
Okay.
own separate super resolution modes. Samsung's is 200 megapixel, Apple's is 48. And Apple's is more often than not slightly more detailed. Samsung does have a lot of different
Detail,
high-res
but the
options.
colour
You've got
goes out of
200
it.
megapixel mode, 50 megapixel mode. You've got an entirely separate app called Expert RAW where you can take high-res RAW photos. But the funny part of it is that it didn't seem to matter which one of these I used. The iPhone is ever so slightly ahead when it comes to those super zoomed in, nitty-gritty, finer details.
More
It feels
detail
like a
in the
similar
Apple
problem
one.
to the 8K video. You can actually tell Samsung has more pixels to work with, but you can also tell that in most lighting conditions, it doesn't quite know what to do with them. Okay, fine. Well, what about just auto mode? What you're going to be using for 98% of
Yes.
photos on these phones.
Common folk speaking language thing that I should understand. Auto stuff.
I have taken 226 side-by-sides, and let me just
Okay,
say
then.
for starters, you can take amazing, beautiful, cinematic photos on both of these guys. They've both got pretty large, pretty equivalently sized camera sensors, so both of them get that lovely foreground-background separation by default. But I tend to prefer
Samsung one is
Samsung.
nicer in the
It's
pictures.
personality, the rich colors, the warmer skin tones. It's a weird way to describe it, but Samsung's photos are almost friendlier. And I think for the vast majority of people who aren't going to be doing as much photo
I think I'm going to
editing,
have to
they
revisit
to
this as soon
be
as the
more
15
impressed
comes
by
out
the
to see if it
almost
changes it
pre-edited
at
photos
all.
that this phone churns out by default. Let's not forget that Samsung is also far more aggressive with dynamic range in photos. This phone pretty much never misses in terms of keeping those bright skies well controlled. And it's
He
quite a
never
contrast to
misses.
Apple, who's been really slow to integrate aggressive processing like this. I mean, I can see why it feels like too much tampering of the raw image, but I do also just think it looks better.
Ooh,
I
that
think
looks
it's pretty clear
crispy.
what Samsung's trying to do here. The core messaging of their marketing with the S23s
I
is,
saw this
"Can you
ad."
Send me that. Samsung wants these phones to be the ones that all your friends are jealous of. The ones that are so obviously better than the competitors that you, by default, become the photo.
One big thing, one massive thing that drives me absolutely spare with the feckin' Samsung phone is sharing stuff to your own devices. It's the most biggest hassle known to man. I'm not joking you. Whereas if you get the Apple one, you literally just drop it to the opposite Apple device, or just literally just transfers over immediately. Samsung, you have to feckin' download a thing in order to change the file and put it over to the Apple products. Oh, sweet mother of God.
The capturer of the group. And, well, I think that this whole extra crispy, highly colourful photo processing is the way to get the masses to agree with that sentiment.
Yep,
Both phones
Samsung
also have
picture
12
is
megapixel
way nicer.
ultra-wide cameras, which honestly I have been starting to use a lot of. Anytime I'm with friends or at a party, being able to just go wider is so much easier than having to get up, take 5 steps back, and then tell everyone to now turn to face the camera. Both ultra-wides are just as wide as each other, but you can feel just how much Samsung's image processing has improved when you
It's so
inspect it
much
closely.
nicer.
The category of photos is such a tight battle though, because then I was like, Samsung's shutter lag. It's better than it was before, but it's still no match for the iPhone. You can, and you do still miss things every now and again, just because it takes that extra split second to capture. So overall in photos, I'm gonna give these two titles.
Oh, he's giving it
Oh,
50-50.
yeah, we can't forget the only thing that Samsung was talking about before these phones launched. Night mode. I mean, their entire strapline was made for moonlight. So, to get one thing out of the way, up until this point, the iPhone 14 Pro
Nice
had the most
pictures.
technically impressive nighttime performance I've ever seen on a smartphone. To the point where I've actually, with my own eyes, seen this phone outperform even $6,000 professional cameras, all
Cool.
thanks to the intelligence of the image processing. Well, there's two
Somebody
things you need to know
got
about
some
this
money.
S23 Ultra. One,
Okay, just look at the picture, right? Going straight from smack bang, right? Color. Samsung absolutely smashes it out of the park in comparison to the Apple. Detail. Apple has a sharper image. Samsung has a softer image. Color-wise, I think it does it way better than looking for the detail from Apple.
really good at controlling the bright spots, better than the iPhone.
Don't
Which I
shoot
find
me.
the most
I'm
challenging
doing my
scenario
job.
you could possibly get, and yet there basically isn't a single overexposed pixel, which is super cool. And the second thing is that, on average, it is getting a slight amount more information in those shots. I'm pixel peeping. I'm only noticing these things because I'm pulling up both images on a 30-inch screen and zooming into them, but the point is, they're there if you look for them. And this also applies to portrait mode shots taken in super low light. Plus, I am so glad that Samsung's shaken that bad habit of almost trying to show off how much the phone can brighten your night shots. Night photos should look like photos taken at night, and I can can safely say they do that here. The only thing that I would say
but you
Apple
need to be able
does
to get a
better
good
is feature they
picture.
introduced last year
You can't
called
have a
Adaptive
shitty
Flash
old
that can
dark
adjust itself
picture that
based
you
on
can't
how
see.
close or far you are from the person you're shooting. And it's such a perfect, quick, smart, simple fix that instantly solves the issue of your flash photos looking like this. So Apple still retains that lead this time. But
Yeah.
in night mode photos as an overall category, I think it's time to hand over that crown for the first
Oh-ho.
time in years. And you know what
Oh-ho.
else Samsung just does better?
Samsung is hammering them.
This is an important category for me because ultimately I take photos for the fun of taking photos. Trying new modes, experimenting with filters, that's the soul of smartphone cameras in my opinion. And I think in the process of trying to streamline everything for the casual user, the iPhone does also lose some of that. Its cinematic mode is a little better still, but honestly the gap is closing with the improved intelligence of Samsung's new chip.
I
And
like the
when you're using
Samsung one a
Samsung
bit
camera
more.
just generally, and things like director's view and AI-based photo editing, and the fact that when you see something in the distance, you can just zoom into it, you definitely feel like you're more in control, if that's important to you. And so fun is also going to Samsung. Okay,
It's a
there was time
clear
when iPhone portrait mode
whitewash.
shots were in a league of their own, where I would enviously peer over at my iPhone friends, putting no thought at all into their shots, and them still turning out amazing compared to my Samsung ones. But that day, my friends, is long gone. Samsung's really improved both the realism, successfully simulating all the subtle signs that you're actually using a big old DSLR camera, and also edge detection. At this point, the phone is distinguishing
The Apple one's a bit
individual
nicer on this
hair
one.
on my arm. It's almost too good. And when you pair that with the fact that Samsung makes faces just generally look better, this is definitely the portrait mode that I would want to use. I've tried it on animals too. And
Oh,
while the
look
edge
at the
detection
Samsung
doesn't
one in
work quite as
comparison,
well,
it's so
since
much
these portrait
nicer.
mode algorithms are mostly trained on people's faces, the S23 genuinely still makes them look,
That looks way
this is
clear
gonna
now.
sound weird,
Way clearer.
handsomer? You see what I mean though, right? And a sub to the channel would be Lumentus. That's my worst one ever. Both iPhone and Samsung have some of the best close-up macro modes from any phone.
At this point, I'm going to drown my sorrows. With those kind of shite jokes coming out of left, right, and centre, I swear to God, I'm just going to go back to feckin' bed at this point.
Camera. But then you might remember with the iPhone 14s, Apple added a feature called Photonic Engine, which means any photo you take, the phone will go back, scrub through, and enhance the textures. That really helps Apple out in this case,
Ooh.
leading to, on average, the iPhone's close-ups being both a little closer and a little sharper. There's not too much to say about slow motion, apart from Samsung seems to have nicely caught up with the iPhone slow-mo quality if you're in ideal lighting conditions. I still think it's such a shame though. These current phones are like 5 times more powerful than the phone slow-mo was launched with. Their storage is 10 times faster, the camera's up to 16 times the resolution. If slow-mo
Yeah, I like
was
the detail in
actually
the
given
Apple
some
one, to be
care and
honest.
attention, you could make it so much slower without having to use artificial effects like Samsung does. So, this S23 Ultra is, well, the least impressive looking phone upgrade I've ever seen. But it looks like what they've done is redirected the effort that would have gone into making the phone look different into actually addressing some of the key fundamental problems with Samsung's past cameras, which has led the overall score to 7.5 for Samsung.
It's been a
4.5
clear
for iPhone.
washout for
Meaning
the
that
for the
while the
feckin'
iPhone is
Apple
still a
phone.
more
Right then, ladies and gentlemen, to chalk it down very simply, Apple's better on the video when it comes to detail. Samsung is better with the pictures when it comes to the color. Apple is better on the pictures when it comes to detail. Samsung's better on the video when it comes to smoothness. I prefer the Samsung, to be quite honest. But I'm going to wait and see when the 15 comes out, what the 15 is like, to see will the 15 be better than the Samsung. That sounds like a plan. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you thought of the two phones, and tell me if you see a phone that you think I should get instead. So, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you all again tomorrow. Bye bye.